Which wide receivers should you be putting in your lineup and who should be on your bench for week 10? We're about to tell you. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre. He is Chris. We're here to go game by game and talk about every wide receiver that you want to know about and their matchups for week 10. Don't forget, there are 4 teams on bye. That would be the Patriots, the Jets, the Bengals, and the Ravens. Let's start with those wide receivers that you know should be in your lineup no matter what. Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike Evans, and A.J. Brown. All right, Chris, let's kick things off with the Thursday night rematch of the Falcons and the Panthers. We'll see if there's as many points scored in this game. Will any of them be by Drake London?
Probably not. I mean, it barely can even roster Drake London right now. You can't really start Drake London, can you? No chance I'm starting Drake London.
No, in fact, we talked about him on the Start Sit show last Saturday. Someone was asking, drop him. It took me a second to look back. I didn't even realize how bad his stat line has been. Look, talented guy, but he's just not getting the targets. You can't start him at all. Now, DJ Moore, obviously coming off a down week, but we remember what he did against the Falcons 2 weeks ago. Do you think a repeat is in store?
I mean, a repeat, probably not. Probably not going to catch a 60-whatever yard Hail Mary at the buzzer. But even before that, he was having a good game. Not a great game, but a good game. So I think you can start DJ Moore just because the matchup is so good.
Well, what makes me feel better is that I'm pretty sure they said P.J. Walker is still starting, which as bad as he was last week, I still feel better about him going to more than Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold or whoever. So, yeah, I feel like DJ Moore is a very strong start because it's the Falcons secondary. And then are we going to go so far as to put Terrace Marshall on the lineup? But look, he actually put up some numbers against the Falcons too.
Yeah, actually 2 weeks in a row, Terrace Marshall has kind of been doing some things. So not going to say he's a must start, but I think if you need him, you can start him.
Yeah, I think he's on the flex radar. Look, matchups matter. And in this case, we talk about the Falcons secondary being so generous. So Marshall, don't force him in your lineup, but he's somebody you could consider. Seahawks at the Bucs. Let's start with DK Metcalf. Where does he fall for you in this matchup?
One of those guys, I think you have to start him. Take whatever you get with him. Has touchdown upside, so start DK Metcalf.
Yeah, a little worried about the individual matchup. He might get a lot of Jamel Dean, who's a really good cornerback, but it's not a shadow situation. DK Metcalf, like you said, can always score. He's just a stud, so I feel like you have to start him. And then Tyler Lockett is coming on lately. He's actually been, dare I say, consistent. What do you think he does?
Same thing. Another guy, I think you don't have to put him in your lineup if you have, way better options, but another guy that probably should be started in most lineups, has tremendous weekly upside. I think if you got Lockett, you start him.
That's the thing. You hate to even put him on your bench because he always has that long play within him, touchdown upside again. So a strong start, not a no-doubter, but a very good start even in this matchup. And then there's Mr. Reliable, meaning he will get you about 10 to 12 points, and that's Chris Godwin. Does anything change this week?
Probably not. Seahawks actually do have an underrated secondary. They've been pretty good against the pass. So, I mean, again, you're probably starting Chris Godwin in most situations. He's a fine start this week. Just don't expect a huge game.
He's just kind of settling into a floor play, kind of just a low-end wide receiver too. So, I mean, as long as you know what you're getting, he's okay to start. And then there's Julio Jones. He's still playing from what I'm told. Any interest in Julio Jones?
No interest in Julio Jones. No, none at all.
I didn't think so. And I will agree, no interest either. Vikings taking on the Bills. Obviously going to be a tough call here as far as guys like Adam Thielen. Do you think that he gets enough volume to be playable in fantasy?
Probably not. I mean, this Bills secondary is kind of banged up right now, but still, you don't want to go chasing. When you're chasing a guy like Adam Thielen, you'd prefer him in a better matchup. So I'm gonna say no to Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, I think you can flex him, but that's about it. Obviously, a great defense in Buffalo. Maybe the Vikings have to pass it a ton, but I'm not counting on that. So a start if you need him. And then there's Gabe Davis. I mean, it's either all or nothing, right? Which one are we going to get this week against the Vikings?
I mean, this seems like a week where you could get an all from Gabe Davis. This is a secondary he can definitely hit a big play on, so I think you got to roll with Gabe Davis this week.
Man, I can't say you have to start him. I think you still take a shot. Like, I feel like we've said this a couple weeks in a row and he hasn't delivered, but look, it's a good matchup for him. I think you can definitely start him, and again, just cross your fingers and hope for the best. And then Isaiah McKenzie, is he at least on the flex radar?
No. I mean, completely touchdown or bust for McKenzie, so I'm not starting him.
Yeah, he kind of is what he is. He's like, if you have a lot of guys on bye or injured and you need somebody to plug and play, he can do it. That's about it. Detroit will travel to Chicago. All right, so the sun god has not pleased us in the fantasy world lately. Do you think anything changes?
I mean, this is a very good matchup. We saw what the Dolphins just did to this secondary. It's really bad. So I think another guy that you just have to have in your lineup and take whatever you get. So, yes, you're starting Amon-Ra St. Brown this week.
I mean, at least there is a floor, right? There is a floor. Against the Bears, he should, just like he should have the last couple of weeks. But anyways, yeah, I'm still starting him. Not going to say he's going to be a top 10 receiver because he hasn't done that for a while, but I think you have to start him. And then what about Darnell Mooney, who's come alive lately? Against the Lions, I mean, I almost feel like, I don't know. Could we go so far to say Darnell Mooney now is a must start?
I don't know about a must start, but I think he's a very good start this week against the Lions. Justin Fields playing better, the whole offense playing better. I like Darnell Mooney this week.
Yeah, very solid start. I mean, clearly you could have receivers who are better than Mooney and he's on your bench, but good start. The Lions defense, give credit. They do have some good players at the secondary level, but, not enough to scare me away from a guy like Mooney. And then there's Chase Claypool. Do you think he gets more involved enough to be startable?
Does he get more involved? Sure. Is it enough for me to start him? No, I'm still not starting Chase Claypool.
Yeah, I think we have to see that there's some chemistry, something going on there. So, no, I'm not going to be starting Claypool. Jaguars at the Chiefs. There are a whole bunch of receivers we could talk about here. Let's just stick to the main ones, starting with Christian Kirk. Big game against the Raiders. Can he do it against the Chiefs?
I mean, he can always do it, and you got to like this matchup because, you can look at what happened with the Titans and say, well, their receivers didn't do anything. But who are their receivers? Robert Woods, and they had Malik Willis at quarterback. The Chiefs secondary shouldn't scare you. The Jaguars are probably going to have to throw it a lot and score points. So I think Christian Kirk this week is a good start.
Can agree. He's definitely a good start because, look, when he does have a big game, it's usually a pretty big game. I don't want to miss out on that against the Chiefs here where they could be throwing it a ton. So I like Christian Kirk this week. I don't know if I'll go that far with Zay Jones. I think he's, again, just always that kind of emergency flex if you need someone. But do you think that he has more interest for you?
No, same. Because of the matchup and because I do think maybe the Jaguars will have to throw more, you can start Zay Jones, but only if you need him.
All right, as if we didn't have enough Chiefs receivers to talk about, we're going to add one more to the mix. All right, let's start with Juju. Been pretty good lately. Do you feel like he's approaching really strong must-start territory?
I do. I mean, 88 or more, two of the last 3 games over 100 yards, over 88 yards in the other game, has 18 or more fantasy points in 3 straight games. Like, he's obviously got that connection with Mahomes now. I think you have to start Juju Smith-Schuster.
There you go. Look, I think he's a really, really solid start in this game. So I can't go too far with him, but yeah, I'll say solid start here, kind of like Kirk. Kadarius Toney, welcome to the mix. He caught 2 passes, but of course that was his first game with the team. Do you think he gets significantly more involved this week?
Significantly more? I'm not sure about that. Kind of like Chase Claypool. I think he'll be more involved, but not enough for me to put him in my lineups. I'm sitting Kadarius Toney.
I would sit him as well. Look, maybe down the road, keep stashing him, but don't start him just yet. McCole Hardman, all of a sudden he just can't stop finding the end zone. Does he do it again?
I mean, maybe, but I'm not going to chase a guy who basically has to score a touchdown to give you anything. It's just not my style. If you want to do it, go for it. But me personally, I'm sitting him.
Oh, look, in a pinch, you can roll him out there. This Jags secondary is okay. Like, they're still fine. So I'm going to say Hardman. Again, emergency flex if you need him. MVS, let's just get this out of the way with.
Hard no for me on MVS.
Definitely no MVS. And we could even talk about Justin Watson, but we're not going to. Browns taking on the Dolphins. Amari Cooper. How strongly do you feel about him in this matchup?
Very strongly. It's the Dolphins. Still a terrible secondary. Amari Cooper has been great. You have to start Amari Cooper.
We might have thought at one point, it's going to get Xavier Howard. It could be tough for him. Howard's been banged up all year, has had a letdown when he has been on the field. Cooper has been great. You have to start Amari Cooper. This could be a big game for him. And then there's also Donovan Peoples-Jones. He still has some relevance here. At least I think so. Do you think so?
I think so. I think he's a guy that if you need him, you can start him. He's got upside in this matchup. Definitely not a must start, but if you need him and you're looking for upside, he's got it.
I'll say as long as David Njoku is out, which, again, it's too early to tell, but good chance he doesn't play in Week 10. Peoples-Jones is at least flex worthy. Texans going to take on the Giants. Here's an interesting one. Brandon Cooks, who did not play last week because he didn't get traded. And he didn't like that. Do you think he makes a reappearance in this game?
It sounds like he's going to. Kind of a weird situation. Take my ball and go home, but then I'm going to come back and play. So kind of weird, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not starting Brandon Cooks. I've seen enough of him this year on the Texans. Can't do it. Not starting him.
Yeah, besides the fact that he's not happy there. Look, just statistically, he wasn't very good before he didn't get traded, which is why they're trying to trade him. Anyways, Cooks, I'll pass. Giants secondary has actually been pretty good anyways. And then on the Giants side, we got Wan'Dale Robinson. Do you think we see him kind of become the primary target?
Maybe, but look, it's the Texans. Their run defense is so bad. This is going to be the Saquon Barkley show. I don't think we're going to see a lot of Daniel Jones passes in this game. So only if you really need him, you can flex him.
Yeah, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that Barkley could have a huge game this week, and that means they probably won't have to pass. And come on, it was a valiant effort, but I don't feel like the Texans are going to put up a lot of offense against the Giants any more than they did against the Eagles. So look, Wan'Dale is flex worthy if you need somebody. Just don't expect too high of a ceiling. Darius Slayton, I got to be a little bit lower on because I really don't feel like they need a field stretcher in this game. So I'd say probably can just sit him.
Agree. It's just not a good game script for Slayton. We saw this with Derrick Henry a couple weeks ago. If the Giants want, they can just run it with Saquon Barkley 30 times and win this game. So gonna sit Darius Slayton.
Saints taking on the Steelers. Chris Olave looking pretty promising against the Steelers defense.
Yeah, you got to start Chris Olave against the Steelers. A terrible defense, terrible secondary. You got to start Chris Olave.
Yeah, don't think twice about it. Olave should be in all lineups for sure. And then the Pittsburgh side, only two options now to speak about. Let's start with George Pickens, who I guess is now the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh, because that's kind of what they say. Does Pickens do anything against the Saints?
He could. We talk about the Steelers' defense being bad. So is the Saints' defense. His secondary is decimated. Not sure if Lattimore will be back yet. That may hurt him to some degree. But I think Pickens, I'm not going to say he's a must start, but if you need him, he's a solid start.
I'll agree he does have some upside because he can make those big plays, those tough plays. Man, Kenny Pickett has been just so bad on the deep ball. I don't even say deep. Anything past 10 yards, it's just almost a sure thing to be incomplete. But look, Pickens is a guy I think can always have some upside, so he could be flexed if you need him. Deontay Johnson, I'm just going to start saying no from now on until I see something change.
I think just because of the matchup, again, another guy, if you need him, you can start him, but only because of the matchup, and just don't expect a big game.
Broncos at the Titans. Let's start with Courtland Sutton. A lot of people disappointed with his output. Do you feel like you can trust him against the Titans?
There's definite trust issues, but I still think you got to play Courtland Sutton and just kind of take what you get. We know he was really good for a lot of games there. Russ actually looked a little bit better before the bye. I think the offense will be better coming out of the bye. Don't love it, but I think he's a good start.
I think people are giving up a little too easily on him. Look, obviously this Broncos offense has been very disappointing, but this is a good matchup for the passing game. You saw how the Titans got shredded by Pat Mahomes. Obviously, Russ is not Pat Mahomes these days, but I like Courtland Sutton good enough to say he's a good start. Jerry Jeudy, do you put him in the same category?
Yeah, same. Jeudy actually it looked like maybe it was starting to out target Sutton, but that could have been matchup based. Sutton did have a couple tough matchups, couple tough shadow matchups there. So I think Judy, another guy in a good matchup, you can start him.
Yeah, he's startable. More like a low-end wide receiver 3 for me. But look, these days in deep enough leagues, I think he's startable. And then on the other side there, Robert Woods. Do we even need to talk about Robert Woods anymore? There is no passing game in Tennessee. I mean, maybe if Ryan Tannehill comes back.
Even then, I'm not starting Robert Woods. What Mike Vrabel had that quote. Somebody asked him like, "Hey, what about the sustainability of Derrick Henry getting like 30 touches every game?" And he's like, "Well, who are we going to throw to? We don't even have anybody to throw to. Like, what? Do you even know Robert Woods is on the team?" But no, if the coach doesn't want to throw the ball to Robert Woods, I don't want him in my fantasy lineup. Not starting Robert Woods.
No, I think I might have to start dropping Robert Woods in a couple places where I do have him. Colts at the Raiders. Who knows what we're going to get from Indianapolis this week? I mean, maybe it's Ellinger again. Maybe they go back to Matt Ryan now that the coach has been fired. But either way, I mean, are we even putting Michael Pittman in lineups?
I mean, if by some miracle they go back to Matt Ryan, sure, I'll play Michael Pittman. But they're not going to. You don't make all these moves and then go back to the veteran QB. So with Sam Ellinger, can't do it, benching Michael Pittman.
And it would be such a great matchup, too, if they had a real quarterback. And like you said, I am firmly convinced this is a tank job, so I don't see anything changing. I gotta sit Pittman, sadly. What about Mac Hollins? Because, look, I think it's clear now he's the number 2 receiver. And going against the Colts, who are pretty much just rolling over, can you start Hollins?
I mean, if you need him, you can start him. We know, look, when Devontae Adams is healthy and the matchup is good, it's going to be mostly Devontae Adams. But Matt Collins involved enough in a good matchup that if you need him, you can start him.
Well, what I worry is that, they really won't need to pass the ball much at all because Josh Jacobs will roll over this team. They're actually going to have a lead, maybe keep a lead in the second half. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, Hollins, it's just a desperation flex. And then it won't be much longer before Hunter Renfrow just completely falls off the map here. But I think it's easy to say you can't start Renfrow.
Yeah, he's right there with Robert Woods. Like, we're not going to have to talk about him pretty soon here. So not starting Hunter Renfrow.
Cowboys at Packers. You're good if you got CeeDee Lamb. How good do you feel about Michael Gallup?
Not very good. I mean, still working his way back from that ACL in a tough matchup. This is a tough secondary. I'm sitting Michael Gallup.
Yeah, exactly. There's one thing the Packers have done fairly well. It's limit passing yardage, so can't start Gallup, I don't think. And then on the Packers side, I guess their one receiver that still has some semblance of value is Allen Lazard because he's healthy and he's looked pretty good the last couple of weeks. So how high would you put Lazard?
I mean, I'm not going to put him super high, but I think if you have Allen Lazard, you got to start him. He's, Romeo Doubs, high ankle sprain, now going to miss however many weeks. Christian Watson, banged up. Sammy Watkins, terrible. He's all Aaron Rodgers has. If you've got Lazard, you got to start him.
Yeah, like you said, Dobbs out. Aaron Jones either out or will be limited because he's not healthy. Might see a whole lot of Lazard. I mean, he's almost must start for me because also got to feel like the Packers are going to have to throw the ball again. So I really like Lazard's numbers this week. Cardinals going to take on the Rams. Just when it looked like DeAndre Hopkins was going to be a breakout. Well, I mean, he's broke out several years ago. But a revelation, a midseason savior. Not so much. What happened last week? And you think that the little riff that they had last game carries over? Should we be worried about Hopkins now?
I wouldn't be worried about Hopkins, but look, this is a tough matchup. I talked about it, when we did our start-sit shows with Mike Evans. Like, Jalen Ramsey has been playing better, and he did a good job against Evans. I think he's going to do a good job against Hopkins. If you have DeAndre Hopkins, you've got to start him, but just be ready for another potential letdown.
This could be a huge letdown. Like you said, Jalen Ramsey on him. It's worth noting that after that little sideline argument with Kyler Murray, he just didn't throw to him, basically. He started going to Rondale Moore, and, I mean, who knows? Hopefully that's patched up. But, yeah, Hopkins, it's so hard. You can't bench him, I guess, but I don't expect good things. What about Rondale Moore? I mean, a couple weeks in a row, putting up numbers in PPR. How do you feel about him?
I'm kind of coming around on Rondale Moore because he's getting all the run out of the slot. He's getting those, easy throws over the middle. The Rams secondary has been better, but I think Rondale Moore will get the easier, matchups here. I'm not going to say a must start, but I'm going to say if you need him, he's a pretty good start this week.
Yeah, what limits Moore is, not going to get those end zone targets necessarily. But, yeah, I feel like he's a solid floor play in PPR, so I think he's a good start in this matchup. And then, Justin, you thought you maybe could trust Allen Robinson. Now he went back to being Allen Robinson. Does anything change in this matchup?
Probably not. He needs a touchdown to do anything. I mean, if you're completely desperate, sure, but don't want to start Allen Robinson.
No, I think he can go back to the bench for me. I'm not starting Allen Robinson either. Chargers at the 49ers. Is there a chance Keenan Allen plays? And if so, do you even put him in a lineup? I
think, again, I say it every week. If he practices fully and is healthy, I think you play Keenan Allen. But if it's just, limited practice, game time decision type of thing, then I'll sit him. But if he's good to go, fully healthy, I'm starting Keenan Allen.
All right, so basically that's a no. Look, we know Keenan Allen is not even close to 100%, and even if he is, chances he makes it through the game, sorry. I'm out on Allen for now at least, so I'm just going to ignore him. Josh Palmer obviously was a good start last week as predicted. Do you think he keeps it going?
I'm not going to say you have to sit Josh Palmer because, again, if Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are both out, he's pretty much all they have. It's just him and Gerald Everett. It's a much tougher matchup this week, though, so I'm going to say only start him if you need him.
Yeah, much different matchup, so he's okay. I think he's still flexible, but that's as high as you can go. And again, that's with or without Keenan Allen. Again, I'm assuming Allen is not playing, but still, I don't think I can be too high on Palmer this week. DeAndre Carter, again, assuming Allen doesn't play, any interest?
No interest. With or without Keenan Allen, no interest.
Yeah, he was okay as a desperation start last week, but that's over with. What about the 49ers? Deebo Samuel had a week to rest. I'm going to assume he's good to play this coming week. If so, does he just go right back into lineups?
Not a must start, but again, another one of these guys, I think you just kind of have to put him in your lineup and take whatever you get. I do worry that, it's going to be another CMC game because it's the Chargers and they can't stop the run, but I can't bench Deebo, so I'm going to say a good start.
Yeah, maybe if you're in an 8-team league and you have 2 stud receivers already or something. Otherwise, yeah, you can't bench Deebo. But again, just goes to show how things change. A guy who was like an early second-round pick, and now he's like not a must-start anymore. And then Brandon Ayuk, been really good lately. Do you feel any differently about him?
I do, but I'm not, again, I can't say a must-sit or anything. I don't feel as good about him as I do about Deebo because, again, I don't think this is going to be a game where they have to throw it a lot, where they have to throw it down the field. I think it's just going to be a lot of short stuff, a lot of running the ball. I think if you need him, you can start Ayuk, but definitely don't love Ayuk this week.
I think he's okay. Look, he's shown he's been pretty consistent lately, got that connection with Jimmy G, but he kind of always is what he is. He's kind of that strong, high-end third receiver, and that's it. And then we end the week with Washington taking on Philly, see if they can hand them their first loss. Start with Terry McLaurin. Been good, but now he gets the Eagles. What do you think?
Not starting Terry McLaurin. Had a letdown game last week against the Vikings. This is the problem with Taylor Heineke. It's he had 2 good games and people forgot all about last season. This is what you get with Taylor Heineke. You get very highs and very low lows. Darius Slay probably going to shadow him. Not starting Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, he could always hit on a big play, but like you said, got Darius Slay in a really good defense against him. I can't feel great. Not an absolute must sit, but don't start him if you really don't have to. Curtis Samuel caught that long, ridiculous touchdown last week. Do you feel any differently about him?
No, I do think in this matchup maybe he gets more targets and more receptions than McLaurin, but I don't think he does anything with them. Nothing more than a desperation flex if you need him kind of guy in PPR leagues only.
Agreed. Desperation flex. Can't go much higher than that. And then Devontae Smith. I know he doesn't care about your fantasy team, but do you care enough to put him in your lineup?
I'm not going to say you absolutely have to sit him just because he's had 2 down games. He's got the upside. He's got the potential. It is a good offense. I'm going to say, a guy that if you need him, you can start him.
He's kind of become one of those Gabe Davis types where it's like all or nothing, and I can't guarantee it's going to be a big week, but it could be. It's a decent matchup. I'll say he's a decent start, but not much more than a low-end wide receiver 3. All right, that's our take on all the wide receivers that matter for fantasy heading into Week 10. What about all the other positions? You want trade advice, waiver wire advice? We got you covered. Check out our Week 10 playlist with everything you need to know to win in fantasy football.